I've struggled with anxiety for a long 27 years, almost 3 decades, and I want to share in this video today how I was able to overcome it and find lasting relief from it, and you can too. I hope you find some inspiration and ideas on how you could deal with anxiety as well, because I know from personal experience how difficult, how challenging, draining, exhausting anxiety is. It really is one of the worst things that you can experience, especially mentally, emotionally, and physically. I actually didn't know that I was struggling from anxiety until I was about 27 years old. That was 12 years ago. The way I found out was that I started to go to therapy when I was 27. A whole new world opened up when I started therapy. I started to realize a lot of things about myself, about my childhood, and about the experiences I had and how they shaped me. So definitely therapy was useful in that way to open up this whole awareness that I just didn't have. Before that, I just knew that I was unhappy, which didn't make sense to me because I had all the things that I was working towards my whole life that I thought would make me happy, like my degree. I had a master's in software engineering at that point. I had a really amazing, successful career from the very beginning. Since I started, my first job was managing multi-million projects internationally. So it was a huge job, and managing a company, actually building a company for someone else. Immediately after I finished school and I executed that plan, that was my plan to become happy one day, right? And then I had this amazing job and I had an amazing relationship. I lived with my boyfriend at the time, and everything on the outside looked great, but I was still deeply unhappy, and I didn't realize why that was. I didn't understand why now, when I have all these things that I worked so hard my whole life that I thought would make me happy, they weren't working. Classically, as it always goes, almost always things had to fall apart for me to start looking for answers and to start getting help. And when I broke up with my boyfriend at the time and the company that I worked for, I left. So kind of everything that I knew in my life started to fall apart. I started to go to therapy, and that's where I started to realize that this unhappiness that I'm feeling is actually anxiety, and that the origin of that is in my childhood experiences. This was really distressing to hear and difficult, and I struggled with that a lot. It brought up a lot of pain for me and a lot of unhappiness, a lot of resentment, a lot of suppressed emotions that I pushed down for so many years. They started to bubble up, and I didn't really know what to do about that. Instead of getting better, which you would assume that is going to happen when you start therapy, I was actually starting to get worse, and I really felt like my life was falling apart. And I went to therapy for like a year and a half weekly, until the point where I just felt like this isn't going anywhere anymore. I'm not making any progress. It's not helping. And then that was when I started to look into some alternative things to see if there's anything else that can help me. It took a few years. I tried quite a few things, but it took a few years until I actually discovered transformational hypnotherapy, which is what I do today. It's the thing that saved my life, truly. I just remember coming across this lady who was talking about subconscious patterns, and how these subconscious patterns are something that happens automatically within our mind, within our body, and just compels us to do things that we feel like we don't have conscious control over. And that really resonated with me. I was listening to that and I was thinking, yes, that's exactly what's happening to me, because I'm doing all this work. I'm doing therapy. I'm doing meditation. I was meditating daily, continue to meditate for a decade. I was journaling, I was manifesting, I was going to theta healing, I was going to all these different modalities and treatments, and really reading books, listening to podcasts, watching videos, analyzing myself, exploring myself. I really was very passionate about it. I didn't take it lightly. For 5 years, I did really intense work for hours and hours just to end up in the most catastrophic relationship ever, where I felt totally out of control, where I felt like that everything that I knew logically I wasn't doing, I was doing something else. And that was like the final signal for me that something isn't working. If I continue this way, I will never be free. Those were my thoughts in that moment. I was feeling really hopeless about the whole situation. And that was the moment when I came across transformational hypnotherapy. And I'm so grateful that I did, because it showed me the way to address those subconscious patterns that you cannot address with thinking, deciding, analyzing, by monitoring your thoughts. All of these things do not work for the subconscious patterns, because subconscious patterns trigger, activate automatically. They happen automatically. So you don't have power from this state of mind, from this thinking, way of thinking. You don't have power over those patterns. You need to shift your way of thinking, your mode of thinking, to be able to access that information and to be able to change that information. This is what transformational hypnotherapy allowed me to do. And later on, I realized that hypnosis is actually about that switch between the tunnel vision that we have when we're in this thinking everyday mode, the way that I'm talking right now, the way that you're listening to me right now. We are in this problem solving everyday mode that is a very tunnel vision way of thinking. But with these simple visualizations, it really doesn't take long. You just have to know what you're doing. You can shift that way of thinking to a lot more perceptive thinking, big picture thinking, intuitive thinking, that allows you access to information that you don't have right now. So, and this is the thing that was missing for me. When I accessed these moments from my childhood that created my anxiety, I accessed those moments before in therapy, but I didn't have access to all the information from those scenes. I just saw them partially, not fully. So because I didn't have all the information, the insights that I had were also partial, and they were not enough for me to release that and to let go. And when I got the full picture, when I got the full insight, then I was able to let go much more easily. That was the first part that was crucial. And then the second part that's absolutely crucial for transformational hypnotherapy and for subconscious work is that I got a recording that was made specifically for me and that I listened to every day for weeks. So that daily listening to that recording over and over again daily in hypnosis allows those new ways of thinking, new ways of believing, who you want to be, your new identity, to sink in directly into your subconscious mind so that it becomes who you are. So that's something that my clients say all the time, and I notice so many times, where you just start doing something and then you realize, well, I'm listening to this in my recording. The direction isn't I'm listening to something in my recording and now I'm doing that. No, you start doing that naturally, organically, and then you realize, oh God, that's what I'm listening to every day. Because how it works is it's going into your subconscious, and then your subconscious is inspiring you to do this thing instead of you listening to an affirmation or repeating an affirmation and then forcing yourself to do that thing. That doesn't work, or it's extremely challenging to get yourself to work in that way and to actually change your patterns and habits in that way. Force always backfires. And when you try to use force on yourself, it's going to have an equal reaction back. It's going to have a pushback, and that's when usually your life starts falling apart if you're trying to do inner work in that way. When you work with these parts of yourself, when you access these parts of yourself, when you give them what they need, you access them with compassion, with kindness, with understanding, you realize what is going on with you internally, you let that go, and then you slowly over time, in a tempo that is gentle and manageable for you, adopt these new levels, these new patterns, these new ways of thinking and feeling and acting. Then it naturally becomes the new you. Become anxiety free, not because you were pretending, not because you were forcing, but because this is who you really are. This is who you always were. But you had these programs that were running in the background that were preventing you from being that person. And the moment you remove those programs and you replace them with the ones that are more in line with who you are, with the calm, confident self that you are, then your life changes, and it changes quickly. So my anxious attachment that I share with you, that ended up in a catastrophic relationship after all the work that I've done at 33 years old, that shifted in matter of weeks. From that point on, I had no anxious attachment in my further relationships. I felt calm. I didn't overthink. I didn't plan for a breakup. I didn't think about my way out all the time. I didn't assess all the time. I was able to go with the flow, be present, enjoy my emotions, but also be more rational about, is this something that I want? And does this relationship have a future? And if the answer was no, I was able to walk out. I was able to just leave that relationship. I was able to make that decision, and with the moderate emotional consequence that is healthy and normal, I was able to let go and walk out of that relationship. When before I would just get caught up in this loop and I would go over and over again, and I wouldn't be able to walk out no matter how much I wanted rationally. Or if I did, then I would go through an excruciating amount of pain. So this was just the beginning of my results. I got a lot more results over the last 6, almost 7 years since I discovered transformational hypnotherapy. I had my first session since I finished my training. I just can't believe how much it influenced my life in a positive way, and also so many of my clients that I worked with, probably hundreds of them over the last 6.5, almost 7 years. So if you want to know more about this, you can join my anxiety-free school, where I share tons of free resources where you can try this process for yourself for free, or you can book a discovery call with me. The details are in the description for both. Thank you for listening, and let me know in the comments how this resonated with you. Did anything out of this video sounded like something that you lived through? I would love to know. And also any questions that you have, I'm always happy to help. You can also DM me on Instagram or put your questions in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.